15 years.
6 countries.
2 amazing children.
And it's a beautiful journey.
A beautiful journey indeed. So we had a beautiful wedding, like still, something that like we talk about, still something that our friends talk about, and like it was the best. It was the best day.
Oh my God. It was, stories still come up to this day about our wedding.
Yes, and so we had the most beautiful wedding, and then 2 days later we were literally on a plane to start our lives together in Italy. So we kept our house in Atlanta that season, and we spent, our honeymoon year in Italy together, and that was our first overseas experience. I think all in all it was great. I mean, we spent way too much money because we lived right outside of Milan, and so off days we're like, let's go shopping in Milan. Looking back, our bank account probably would have been happier had we been in another city.
Yeah, for sure. Like, imagine if we would have been in like one of them countryside cities.
We would have saved so much more money.
Yeah.
However, we had a great experience. After Italy, where did we go to next?
So I did training camp with the Hawks. And then we went to Japan. We went to Chiba. Yeah.
So that was our first year living in Japan. And for those of you that have seen our other videos, we live in Japan again now. And so it's kind of like a full circle moment because we were like young. We were like 25, 26 years old, no kids, living right outside of Tokyo. Our first time experiencing Japan. Loved it then, and then like came full circle and got to come back to Japan where he currently plays like with our kids. So kind of crazy like to look back on that now. And after that season in Japan, you ended up signing in France the next season. And I remember that I was actually finishing up my master's in marriage and family therapy during that season, and I had my internship, remember?
Yeah.
And so this was the first season that like I really wasn't able to go with him. Like I think I went over for like a month or 2, but I wasn't able to spend the whole season because I like had to complete these internship hours to graduate.
Yeah. I mean, that season was very tough for me because I didn't really believe in codependency until that season, because that was the first time like I didn't have my best friend with me.
I mean, we've been together since we were 18. Yeah. Like it was a long time.
Yeah. It was very difficult, but I think that season brought a level of appreciation for you and for our marriage and our relationship.
Yeah, I feel like we learned a lot that season, and I don't know if it's because I was like, finishing up my master's in marriage and family therapy and like was learning a lot about like healthy marriages anyway, or if it's because we were like apart. But I feel like we learned how to communicate, and like I mean, not that we didn't already know, we had been together for a while, but like we learned like the correct way to argue, like how to communicate with each other. We like learned each other's love languages, like stuff like that. And I feel like had we been in person, we might not have taken some of this stuff so seriously, but like we had to,
Yeah.
So he finished up that season in France, and we pretty much said like, yeah, let's not do that again, not for that long. Like, since then, there have been times where we've had to spend like a little bit of time here and there apart, a few months, but it hasn't been that long. That was a long season apart. And I mean, we were only a few years married. Like, I wouldn't say we were like newlyweds, but we definitely weren't like, settled quite yet either.
I think what sustained us was the fact that we already had like a solid foundation. Yeah. We had already, it was almost like the honeymoon phase had run its course. Because like those first 2 years of us together, it felt like vacation.
Right. We would just live abroad and then come home and travel. And like, we were just, We
were just, so I think that those first 2 years kind of laid that foundation. And I think that really sustained us. And like you said, we just learned how to communicate and learned each other better.
I think so too.
Grew an appreciation for each other.
And I feel like that's why that next season we were in Indiana, in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Man. Yeah.
That probably, like, if I had to look at all of the seasons before we had kids, crazy enough, that was probably like my favorite season. And I wonder if it's because we had that appreciation for each other after spending the season apart in France.
I think so. And people would give people give Fort Wayne like a bad rep.
Yeah, we had a great experience in Fort Wayne. We had a nice apartment. There was a Fresh Market and a Target.
Like, that's all you need: Target, Starbucks, and Fresh Market.
We were happy. We had a great time, and look, I feel like we had like time together. Like, you know, the schedule wasn't like too crazy. Like we built some great memories in Fort Wayne, and I'll never forget. During that season in Fort Wayne, me and my mom and some of our friends had gone on a little girls trip to Phuket, and I remember like me, my mom, and our friends would go on these girl trips like every year. Usually, whenever you had like long stretches of away games, like we would go on these trips. And I remember waking up one morning in Phuket and being like, "Yeah, I'm tired of this. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want a baby." And I remember like I got home from that trip and I was like, "Honey, like, I know we said we were gonna wait, you know, until we were like 5 years married to have a baby, and like, you know, we're getting to that point, and I just want to let you know, like, I'm ready when you are." And he was like, "Well, let's start trying now."
Let's get to it. Let's get to it.
We started trying for a baby, which was, of course,
fun.
A lot of fun. We finished up that season in Indiana. I had a brain tumor. We will not get into that whole story because there is another video that I did on that story that I will put on the screen for you guys if you want to check that out.
What did I say? Like, click the link below?
Right. He went to China for that summer right after my brain tumor, and then we went to Israel for the next season.
Again, Israel was a perfect segue as well. A lot of people don't know. Tel Aviv is like Miami.
Yep.
So my team that I was on, we also played Champions League. So we traveled, but when we were at home, we were on the beach.
Beach days, fresh seafood, nice weather. It should be no surprise after hearing about all that we conceived our first child in Israel. So I got pregnant with Harper. I found out on Thanksgiving. So that's why Thanksgiving is always so special to us. And she was born that next July after that season.
After the season in Israel, we had another one of my favorite seasons was in Trieste.
We went back to Italy again, this time with Harper, who was, gosh, I think
6 months?
No, she was less. I think she was 4 months old when we went over to Italy.
I don't know why, but Italy will always have a special place in my heart. And I think it was because we shared our first season there together. And also, I think Trieste was great because it was my first season as a father.
Yeah.
And to share those experiences with Harper and to internalize the fact that, like, my daughter is in Italy, like, she's enjoying, and I think you took her on a girls' trip to
Rome. Yeah, she was 6 months.
You know, like, I'm in practice and I get a picture and my daughter is like smiling, looking up at the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Yeah, she's been to Rome. She's been to Pisa. Harper has lived, y'all. She's been all over Italy. Okay, she's been to Florence.
Yeah, Harper passport stamped up for sure. That was probably my most memorable and my best season.
Yeah, I think Italy, like, will always be, I think, our favorite country because, like you said, like, it's like the country of first. Like, it was the first country we went to as a married couple, and then it was the first country we went to as parents. I think it's just like, it feels like magic, you know, like, because there were so many first things that happened for us in Italy.
For sure.
Unfortunately, though, that Italy season was cut short.
It was. That was COVID year.
That was COVID year. And so what ended up happening is that Harper and I came home just for like a short break. We were like, oh, we're going to go home for 2 weeks just to visit family, and then we'll be back over in Italy. And then COVID, like, took Italy by storm while we were away. And I remember him saying, like, you guys cannot come back here. No. Like, it's not safe. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, this is just some little, like, virus. Little did I know, like, it was gonna be the virus that, like, you know, shut the whole world down. And so we didn't end up coming back. Honestly, that COVID summer was another summer that ended up being amazing. And I don't mean to, like, you know, like, shed lightly on how serious COVID was, because I do know it was very serious. However, that COVID summer was the longest period of time that we have spent in our house that we own in Atlanta like ever. And it's because, you know, you got home, I think, in March
15th.
And he didn't leave back out for the following season until September. And so that's a long time. Usually his off season is only like late May through like mid-August. And so we got like an extended summer. Harper turned 1 that summer, and we just really got to enjoy being home, literally, because like we weren't really going anywhere. I was very, very cautious about COVID, having like a little baby. So we were just at home. Like we had the 3 of us. We had our immediate family who we felt comfortable with seeing. And that was it. But like we made some great memories that summer too.
We made wonderful memories. And it's just funny because we would joke about like how people were responding to isolation. And I was like, this is like being overseas.
Yeah, it really did feel like being overseas, honestly.
It was like we're just overseas at home. That was a great year. Like I said, we spent so much time with Harper. And we just made lemonade out of, you know what I mean.
And then after that season, we went to Japan. And so, you know, most of you guys know us from sharing about our time in Japan. That's what we've shared about largely on this channel and on our other platforms. And that first season in Japan, we only had Harper. Wow, like it was a full circle moment because like we said, we had already been in Japan another season without kids. But man, like being there with a child was a little bit different.
I think the biggest difference, and it was harder this time around because we had to shift our perspective on culture. Like the culture, Italian culture and Japan culture are totally different. So we had to not only adjust to the culture shift, but also adjust with the child. I think that was probably the most difficult point.
I think the hardest part of that season in Japan for me was that COVID was still very much going on and Japan's borders were still very shut.
Very, very shut.
So this was the first time in our marriage and in our experience as parents that we really did not have any help. It was really just the 2 of us and Harper, who was 18 months around at that time. We were in Italy that previous season. We had family, you know, visiting pretty frequently. And so we had, you know, little spots here and there. We would have some help with her. But in Japan that season, we had no one visit. And like we knew it was impossible to have anyone visit. So it was really just us. And we had to definitely lean into each other and like figure out how to support each other, you know, as parents. Like he had to do a lot to, you know, make sure that I felt supported as a mom while he was also doing his job on the court. I feel like though that season really helped us because it showed me that like we didn't really need anyone else. And while I am always sharing about like how important it is to have a village and how helpful it is to have a village, at the end of the day, I also think it's important to know that you and your spouse can conquer the world on your own. And I feel like that's what that season like taught me about us as, you know, husband and wife and as parents.
I think even in that instance, and in most cases, like everybody always says marriage is 50-50, but it's never 50-50. It's never going to be balanced. And I think we do a great job communicating because it's like, you know, I've come from a road trip and I've, you know, whatever the case is. And I'm like, babe, listen, I only got 20 for you. Like, I only got 20, I only got 25, I only got 30.
Yeah.
You know, and it's days where you as a mom, you're overstimulated. You're like, listen, I gotta go somewhere. I gotta get out. I gotta go, you know, and I'll take the kids to the park or, you know, and I think that is what we learned, how to be self-sufficient, how to be self-sustaining. And it's different. Your mindset shifts when you realize that, like, the cavalry ain't coming.
Right. Like, there's no one to call.
Yeah, there's no one to call. It's just you.
Yeah.
And I think some people look at it from the perspective of it being a negative, but we turned it into a positive.
And I feel like, you know, even now when we have like periods where it's stressful, where we're both tired, like I lean back on that time and like what we learned about what we can handle. And, you know, I thank God that we do have a village that we can call on. But when we don't, I know that we'll be okay, you know, and we can rally together and we can make this thing work.
And it forces us as parents and as people to be creative.
Yep.
You know what I mean? When you lock down with an 18-month-old or, you know, a 20-month-old, okay, we can have concerts in our underwear.
Yep.
Like, that's okay.
We did a lot of singing Beyonce Crazy in Love with, you know, kitchen spoons because Harper was all Beyonce for whatever reason that season.
She's still Beyonce.
She's graduated to Love on Top these days, but
right.
Yes. So we came home after that season in Japan, and it's ironic because as we're recording this, it is currently the night before Father's Day. And it was the night before Father's Day that, you know, after that season in Japan, that we conceived Jackson.
This is true. And see, I'm only looking at her because she's announced her pregnancy like this. And I'm looking
like... Oh, no, I am not pregnant, y'all. Okay. I'm not... No. Those of you watching this thinking there's going to be a pregnancy announcement, there is not. And if you guys do get another pregnancy announcement from the Joneses, know that it was nothing but God above because, no.
Listen.
Not up in here.
No, you got to rewind and, like, see my face because I'm looking like... Yes, my bad, what were you saying?
I was just saying, after that season in Japan, we came home and we pretty quickly got pregnant with Jackson. It's funny that, like, we know the exact night. It was actually also that year, the eve of your birthday. So happy birthday, honey.
Thank you.
Best birthday and Father's Day gift I could have given you.
It is.
Got pregnant with Jackson.
Shout out to Bombay Sapphire.
Right. And actually, following my pregnancy with him, we entered into another, I'd say, tough season, like, for our marriage and our family. And that was because while I was pregnant with him, we kind of made the tough decision for me and Harper to spend the majority of my pregnancy in America. But it was mostly due to the fact that COVID was still a very big deal in Japan and that the borders were still shut. So we weren't going to be able to have any family or friends come over to help with Harper while I was giving birth to Jackson, and we just knew that wasn't going to work for us. And I had some, like, very minor pregnancy complications, and we wanted me to stay, like, with my doctors here. And so Harper and I came over to Japan for, I think, 6 weeks?
Yep.
And besides that, we were home. And you heard us talk about how hard that France season was. I think that Japan season apart was even harder because we also had Harper.
I mean, it was tough, especially for me, just being away from, you know, everything that I love, basically. You know, the bane of my existence. And I remember a lot of practices I was basically sleepwalking because I would just stay up and just FaceTime y'all around the clock.
Yeah.
But again, this was one of those instances where we had an opportunity to practice our resilience. And that's the one thing in my journey spiritually that I realized. You know, when you pray to God for patience, He doesn't just reward you with patience. He doesn't sprinkle it down on you. He gives you opportunities to practice patience. Mm-hmm. And it's like a muscle, and it's something that you build up, and you it's something that you build up, and it's something that you tone throughout your journey of life. And I took that mindset, you know, during that time and kind of applied it, and it got me through for sure.
And, you know, for me, I feel like the season went by much quicker because I was pregnant. I was chasing around a toddler. You know, I did have my mom and family here a ton to help. So for me, you know, I feel like the time went by a lot faster, whereas for him, I feel like it kind of drug by. But I do feel like we also both kept, like, the end in mind, and we knew that we were doing, you know, what needed to be done for our family. Like, I was literally doing what needed to be done to, like, grow our family, and, like, literally. And, you know, you were doing what needed to be done to make sure our family was, like, taken care of. And I always remember, like, after Jackson was born, when I was kind of, like, you know, deep and in the newborn, you know, fog while also having a toddler, I remember, like, that I think someone had made, like, a little comment, like, asking, like, if you felt bad for being away. And I remember that I was fortunate enough that I had postpartum help. Like, I had night nurses and postpartum doulas that would come a few nights a week to help with Jackson. I remember being like, honey, while I would love for you to be here, while there is no replacement for my actual partner, what you're doing right now is affording me the luxury of being able to like have nighttime help. And what you're doing right now is paying our mortgage in our house that we live in. And what you're doing right now is making it so that, you know, we can go on these trips and have this amazing summer, and so that we don't have to do this again. So like, don't feel bad. Like, do what you need to do. And, like, me and your daughter and this baby that I'm going to hand off to you will be waiting, you know, when you get home.
Right.
So.
And that meant a lot to me. I think that was a mindset shifter, and it definitely put things in perspective.
Yeah.
And it was what I definitely needed to hear at the time.
Yeah. So, I mean, you got home that May. You met Jackson, and the two of you have been just two peas in a pod ever since, you know.
That's my boy. And, you know, that was one of my worries, is like, will we connect?
Yeah.
You know, because like with Harper, I was there, you know, throughout everything. And do you remember, you remember the first night, like I got here?
Yeah.
And I remember you all were on the couch. I came in.
Harper
of course,
was asleep already.
Harper
we surprised her.
Yeah. We surprised Harper at school the next day. Y'all were on the couch downstairs. I walked in. You forced me to strip everything I had on off.
Yeah.
And I changed Jackson's diaper. But the look he gave me as I like lifted him up, it wasn't a cry. He didn't like scrunch his face up. He kind of like looked at me and smiled. I was like, "Oh, what's up, Dad?"
Like all those FaceTime conversations, you talking to him.
Yeah.
You know, when he was in my belly, like he knew you. Like.
Yeah. And I think that was something, and in that, and you know, for me, that was like a pivotal moment, because if he would have cried or if he would have rejected me, I would have been hurt. Mm-hmm. But you know, that's my boy.
Yep, that's your guy.
That's my guy.
So yeah, I mean, like I said, we had an amazing summer that summer. We went to Disney. That's like the highlight of that summer for me, because I'm a big Disney girl. Yeah. I won't bore you guys with the details, but that following season we returned to Japan, this time with our whole family. And a lot of times people ask us, like, why do you take your kids abroad? And I feel like now hearing our story, you know why it's so important to us for whenever we can to be together as a family. And we know that, you know, certain circumstances will arise in the future, especially as Harper gets older, where we may not always be able to do it. But while we can, just like given that we have had to spend certain seasons apart, like we're like, while it's feasible, like let's do it. Like we're all going to be together. So this past season in Japan was our first season abroad as a family of 4.
It was. And I mean, again, just piggybacking off of what you said, the foundation is already laid. Mm-hmm. You know, I can't even put into words the connection and the bond that we share when it's 30 degrees outside, rainy, cold, muggy, and you're looking at your family to entertain each other.
Right. Like, so what are we going to do, guys? Like, it's just us 4.
You know, and not only those being the circumstances, but like to thrive under those circumstances. So like when we come home, it's everything else is a plus. I mean, I really can't speak enough about the connection that you have just being abroad, just with your family.
Yeah, like we are so close knit, and I like hope and pray that it stays like that, and I think it will. Just like we have gotten used to it being kind of just us 4, and while like it's great when we have other people, like we love our family, we love our friends, like we know that as long as we have us, that we're good, you know?
Yeah, that's all we need is us.
And so we spent a lot of the season in Japan, just us 4. Now we are home for the off season, and we are enjoying, you know, spending time with our village and getting out and about more now that things are somewhat normal, you know, again in the world. And it's really fun. I feel like this phase of our life, you know, Harper is 3 going on 4. Jackson is, you know, almost 1.5. And we're enjoying it because we're watching them grow and change literally daily.
Yeah. And it's, like I said at the beginning, man, it's a beautiful journey.
15 years.
5 countries? 6 countries?
2 Amazing children.
It's a beautiful journey.
Let's see what the next 15 years has in store.